Alrighty, so today I want to talk about the difficult content, or the fights that Dokkan has released for this worldwide download celebration. Now, with this worldwide download celebration so far, we have seen the introduction of 3 new archetypes of events. Right, the first one being the blue zone for the movie edition, where we'll break down all the fights in a minute, but you're fighting like Super Saiyan Goku, Super Saiyan 2 Gohan in the most recent iteration of it. With the second one being the memorable battles, where you fight like one phase versions of each like Dragon Ball Z movie. Basically, is what they've been doing so far. Not all of them, but skipping from movie to movie. We started off with one. I think it's like the I don't even remember, but like the something with the Twilight Castle or some nonsense like that. And then we kind of move on to like the cooler movie, and then we had the the Family Kamehameha stuff, the Broly movie. We fight like Super Saiyan Goku from the Broly movie and all those fun things. And then we have the Tremble with Fear, the Devil Awakens, where we have just been fighting different iterations of Broly back to back to back, right? Where we had the first version of him, then the legendary Super Saiyan version of him from Second Coming, and then finally the version from Bio Broly. So what I wanted to do was ask you guys what you thought of the content, right? Like what we did yesterday was like who was the best unit, and today I want the I want the discussion to be focusing on what do we think of the fight so far? Just kind of covering the content of the worldwide download celebration, right? Now, I know that people have their thoughts about the lack of content or the type of content that has been coming out, but this is not going to be a video that is focused on the quantity of events that we have gotten. This is more so going to be focused on the quality of the difficult fights they have been trying to do. So the thoughts that I gave right away to get it started, what I said in here, what do you guys think of the fights that Dokkan has been giving us so far throughout this worldwide download celebration? And then I said, this is for a video, so explain if you want to. I think that they have tried some interesting things, but overall, maybe the units that we have now are just too good for it to be difficult. So what do I mean by that? I think that we have a lot of tools at our disposal right now that we have not had in years prior. Beast Gohan was not around for last year. STR Gohan, the other one, was not a thing. We did not have permanent 154% support like we do with the trio now. We don't have the versions of Broly that we have. We don't have the superheroes team. We didn't have the superheroes team that is that exists right now. Like last year we had a superheroes team, but it was nowhere near what this iteration of the superheroes team is, right? It's a whole different ballgame talking about Orange Piccolo-led superheroes to Beast Gohan-led superheroes, right? Just a whole different ballgame. So again, a lot of tools at our disposal that do make for an interesting discussion. So I asked you guys, what do you think? So let's go ahead and get into these replies. Let's go ahead and get started. So the STR Gohan and Int Broly fight are interesting because units need to be good turn 1, but that's it. They are one phased. After that, overall, compared to last year, these fights are mid at best. So he is talking, the static is talking about the fights down here versus Super Saiyan Gohan, the standby version of this character, where they are supering for 2 million and stuff like that. But this fight works a little bit different, right? Where their attack is actually doubled when HP is 80% or more, and deactivates the effect that disables attack reduction, reduce damage received, deactivates the effect that reduces damage received, right? So this guy is piercing through Beast Gohan's shield, if you will, but even then, Beast Gohan still takes 400k, but we're not going to talk about that, right? This guy is essentially doing like turn 1 supers that are just like super, super hard to get through, doing a ton of damage, and that does make for an interesting kind of aspect of the fight. But Broly, I believe this Broly, right? Which it's not this one. There's a fight in here. Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, I know for a fact, if we go over here, this version of Gohan can actually crit you, and that is something that is a bit new. Performs a critical hit when launching a super attack at 1.6 million. So again, a new aspect to what the fights are doing. Unique, where we have just different things that we have not seen before, right? Where you look at old bosses, where this is more of a traditional sort of like old boss, right? Can't stun them, can't seal them, can't debuff them, all those fun things. But then when we go down here, let's look at a modern difficult boss, right? Where what they're trying to do. So performs a critical hit, they nullify. This is like nothing new, right? Like we could lower their attack and stuff like that. We are taking away ki. We're deactivating the effect that reduces ki, granting immunity to being stunned. Yeah, that's just like funky wording right there. But nullifying super attacks, disables defense reduction, performing crits, locking and stuff like that. There are a lot of different things that these bosses need to be able to do that don't have that are not in here, right? Deals 10% of the enemy's max HP as damage to the enemy every turn. So again, we do lose HP every turn when we are fighting against this Goku, and then you're not able to hit this Goku, right? So different things that these bosses are doing is cool, but specifically what Static is talking about here are these two fights in specific with the memorable battles, where these ones really have like a little bit more of a different feel to them, where all of these are just going to be one phase, and once you get through that one phase, you're kind of good to go, right? So like you can see the attack and the defense is going down with this Broly, and then if we go back over to the Gohan portion of this, it's going to be sort of the same thing, right? Where the defense is going down, the attack is going down. So attack minus 20% with each turn pass. Like again, like if you can just manage to weather the storm, you should be good to go with this type of fight. But I do think it's an interesting concept, and I like what they are trying to do. Sort of the last thing when we're breaking down the unique aspects of these fights, just to make sure that we cover everything here. The Tremble with Fear event, I think this one's actually really fun, because if you just pop a Jaguar item, Broly is going to become the giant Bio Broly, and you can artificially challenge yourself by doing this. I know that Super only says 420,000, but his attack can raise up to 1,000%, and he can hit really hard, and also has 270 million freaking HP. So do keep that in mind. I think this fight is fun. Deactivates the effect that reduces damage received, so again, is like getting rid of damage reduction and stuff like that. It is fun, right? It's just different. So I think that they are trying different things, and like with that, it does make for unique fights and stuff like that. But like I said, the major focus of this specific conversation is just to see what the people think, right? What do you guys think of these fights? So, Static, thank you for the input. Just that was a longer tangent than I meant to do, but it happens. So, I would say that these fights have been average difficulty, but very fun, mainly because of those new mechanics. Yeah, exactly what we just talked about. I'm hoping they build on it and keep going, but unless you needed certain missions and didn't have a few units like the trio, I don't. The fights weren't that bad, which I'm fine with, right? I managed to get it all done because I'm a Giga Chad and I don't have the trio on my JP, but don't worry, we're going to get them soon. We're like 12 coins away from pity. I think the fights are easy. The only thing that makes them hard are the locking phases that throw off your rotations. Yeah, locking has always been super toxic. But again, sometimes like you almost have to do it, right? It's tough. Like sometimes they're just going to force, like, it's like, how do we just make a fight hard without like reinventing the wheel? I always say that, I don't know why, but like without reinventing the wheel like completely, it's just like it's like in case of emergency, just lock, right? Like that's always kind of been a thing. So I think locking rotations, I don't like it though, because like it's like when you take the control out of the player's hands and it's like, oh, okay, a character that got locked in slot 1 that isn't supposed to be in slot 1, it's like, oh cool, guess I lose, right? Like when you did nothing wrong, like you didn't make a misplay, and then the counter argument to that is like, oh, but don't put the character in slot 3 if you know a locking phase is coming, which is valid, but it's tough, right? It's like if you do want to add difficulty artificially, like just make the bosses lock, right? Like we've seen that in the past where like character locking is just so toxic, right? Like a fight like Supreme Battle Spectacle Trunks or Supreme Magnificent Battle. That fight against Trunks, like a lot of people struggle with that one just because of the lock. It wasn't because inherently like the fight was like super difficult, like you couldn't beat it. It was just that there was locking. So keep that in mind. Bosses should have more HP. Yeah, but like we just looked at a Broly that has like 270 million. You have 85 million. Yeah, you could probably use some more. How much do you have? You have 105 million. Yeah, like considering Cell Max has 300 million, but I don't know, like when bosses, like, do we really want to have like a boss that is gaining like attack plus 100% per turn, and then they also have like 400 million HP? It would be tough, but yeah, like with the number boom that like our characters have, like the units that you're using have, I think you could make that argument as well that like boss HP should probably be raised a bit, because it's just like, you know, if Broly's gonna come out the gate swinging, or like Tech Broly, the EZA is hitting like 80 million on his active skill, I'm like, sure, why not, right? But again, it's a double-edged sword, because what happens if you go down that route and then, you know, these like defensively these characters are just not ready to go, right? Like if you want to raise HP, sure, but you kind of have to. It's a double-edged sword, because then you have to be conscious of the attack, right? Like how much, like they can't be hitting too hard and also having like 700 million HP, because I don't know. So I like that, but 0 cooldown on super / locking on rotations to make the events harder. Yeah, I mean, all different things that we've talked about in the past, right? With like characters, or with like other things to raise the difficulty of the event. I like what you're saying here. Zero cooldown is something they have experimented with. I can't think of the fights off the top of my head, but I do know that it's like a 2 cooldown exists, but I'm pretty sure zero cooldown does exist, but I just can't think of the fights off the top of my head. But thank you for the input. Yeah, definitely like locking if you want to make these fights harder, but I also just don't like locking in general. So that is how I think about that. These fights aren't great, just an updated My Fight IMO. Boss crits are a cool concept, just hope we get longer fights in the future to help unleash a unit's full potential. I don't know what you mean that these fights aren't great, just an updated My Fight? What am I missing? An updated New Year fight? I don't know, but I'm just going to ignore that first part. I'm sorry, if you want to specify in the comments, and maybe I'm just having a moment, but boss crits are cool. I agree. Just hope we get longer fights. Yeah, so you're kind of agreeing with what Ariday is saying up there, right? With the, with just like more HP for bosses, which I can get behind. I think that does make sense. So yeah, for sure. Because like these units, like they can snowball, but you really don't get to see them fully snowball. So yeah, I'd agree with that. They were all fun with unique mechanics, but we're obviously still missing the super hard fight. Well, the good news is when I'm recording this video, it is early in the morning on September 21st, and we still have some Supreme Magnificent Battle movie edition fights left. So hopefully they, you know, part 3 is usually when we get the big boy fight, so hopefully they do kind of hook it up for us. I feel they need to start doing memorable battle missions differently. They're too easy and kind of boring. There's a whole separate discussion with those. I do know that they've been taking stones away in place of tickets, which obviously I'm not a fan of. I feel like all of us, like I could speak for just about everybody, where it's like, just give us stones. But yeah, I mean, just more category missions, right? Like you think about how many category missions like the GT Goku event has and the Vegeta event has and stuff like that. It's just like, give us like, even if it is like, you know, 2 or 3 stones per mission, just like give us some category stuff so there's more things to do, right? Like that's always the biggest complaint. So they're too easy and kind of boring. I can see that perspective. I love how they added the crit that the enemy now has been a lot harder to tank, but yeah, the units are busted overall for sure. Wish they were harder. Weak, boring, lame. Battlefield is harder. That battlefield is tough, yeah, but I think that there are some cool things going. Perfect, because I pull the unit I want. Yeah, we should all strive to be like Bayou here. I pull the unit, I don't care. I think the crit mechanic can work, but the fight can't be just about it and be nothing else without it. It can work to make some characters make the fight harder, but still hard without these characters. And right now, before the final Blue Zone stage, I am disappointed. Yeah, hopefully the final Blue Zone stage does help. Some he did use 1 comma here, but I think he could use a couple more. I think the crit mechanic can work with the fight. Yeah, so like what I do understand what you're saying. Like you are like implying that like the whole gimmick is like, oh, this boss can crit, watch out, guys, right? And then it's like this happened to me where it was like I got critted, like the boss crit me when I was using Beast Gohan, and it did double digits. I was like, whoa, you know, it's like that LeBron thing. Was not impressed, but a crit can work. Like I did get caught using the free-to-play Videl. A crit hit her with a double Whis, and she took like 600k, which is not normal. So it is something new. But again, hopefully part 3 does give us a new fight, a new hard fight. Fun, but not hard. Yeah, and it actually makes me mad because some of those fights could have been hard, but the boss's defense is so low. They die in an instant. The physical Goku fights hits harder than Cell Max, but dies in an instant. That is so annoying. I despise the dev team for that. I think despise the dev team might be a little aggressive, but yeah, I do see what you're saying, right? Where we have like a boss like Cell Max that's really tough to get through. I think one thing that they could have done to make these fights a little bit harder is like Cell Max in specific has like additional damage reduction against AGL, right? So it's like you can't just like cheese UI Goku, you can't cheese Jiren and just go in there and just shred him because you have type advantage. That could be something that they do, but obviously they did not. And like this guy said, you know, profanities aside, it's like it is very easy and stuff like that, and it's you know, they do die very quickly, and I can understand that, right? Like maybe if these bosses are a little more tanky, we'd be having some more fun. As someone who started playing right before the worldwide download celebration, I like that the fights aren't insanely hard. They're kind of nice to find my footing and figure out how these units work. Yeah, you guys got to remember there's alternate perspectives, right? Thank you, Wyoming, for that. But also, like, they are making the fights that are supposed to cater to endgame players. And with that perspective, like, if you are trying to make a fight difficult for an endgame player, then they need to have more going on, I think. But yeah, like, but that's like, you know, the counter argument to what you're saying is like, that's what the OG red zones are for. That's what the GT Goku event is for, right? So you can gradually progress your way up to the new fights that are coming out now. But instead, it's like, they just don't, it's like, it doesn't even matter. It's like, you know, you're just going into these fights that are supposed to be branded as like the end game. And you're like, oh, wow, that was kind of easy, right? So that is kind of something that you do have to think about. But again, I do appreciate the input and the alternate perspective. Too easy. All I'll say is this. I do agree that the events needed to be harder, but at the same time, if these fights were Goku Frieza level difficulty, you would just hear nonstop crying and whining for it being too hard and artificial difficulty. Yeah, I think, like, to me, artificial difficulty discussion just comes up with, like, locking, right? Because it's never, like, the user's fault. Like, especially if it's, like, right away, like, that can be very frustrating. But it's, like, if people are complaining that it's too hard, it means the devs probably did something right. But, like, also, it's just players that want to get their stones so they can summon, right? And you can't please everybody no matter what they do. It's just how this world we live in works, unfortunately. But it is what it is, right? But yeah, Goku and Frieza level difficulty is kind of what I wanted, right? Bulma level difficulty without the nonsense. Goku and Frieza level difficulty for like the big fights, because that way, you know, these units are really challenged, right? Like, I don't know if there's been a night so far where, like, when content drops and, like, I had to wait, like, in the blue zone for, like, an attempt limit, right? Like, it was just like, okay, mission done second try, mission done third try, no item run done first try. And that hasn't always been the case, right? Like, I go back to, like, Red Zone Broly, where Red Zone Broly took me, like, you know, a couple weeks to get the no item run, right? Or, like, this is going to be a very niche example, but, like, Belmod from the God event back in, like, 3 years ago, that event dropped in the spring, like in what, part 3, so late February-ish, right around there. And I didn't get the no item run for that fight until like July, right? And that's just not really a thing anymore. But that also speaks to power creep of characters, power creep of bosses, and we just haven't really seen that with this celebration, where it's like, you know, everybody is getting their no item runs right away. Everybody's getting all the missions done right away. And that's just a testament to the difficulty as well as how good the characters are. So I think that there is some level to, it's like, you know, people are always going to complain, but that's just life, man. Like, I don't think that has anything to do with what Dokkan's doing here, but I do understand what you're saying. They're all right, I guess. The challenges were easy. Got them all done first try. Yep, see what I mean? There you go. Got them all done. I didn't even read that. Like, I'm kind of focusing on one reply at a time. Got them all done first try on my first run in the blue zone. I feel like if they just released the content that JP still has, then maybe it'd be more fun, since then we'd have the hardest fights in the game. He's talking about Goku, Frieza, and Bulma. Sure. Trash. Yeah, I think that's just aggressive. I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. But there you guys go. Just wanted to give some perspectives on what people are thinking about the celebration, or this fight so far, the celebration. I am optimistic that part 3 is going to give us what we are looking for in terms of just giving us that tough fight that we've been waiting for. But who knows? So let me know down below what you guys think of the current content situation, at least in terms of difficult fights over here on the Worldwide Download Celebration. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like before you go, and subscribe if you are new, so that way you don't miss out on any of the Dokkan content we're posting around here. We are almost to 10K, so make sure that you do subscribe. It would help out the channel a ton. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.